And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for those beautiful readings tonight. Tonight I would like to express my gratitude for the Bible, Mary Baker Eddy's writings, and the teachings that are done at Plainfield Independent Church. It is because of all of this that I am learning the true sense of right thinking and right acting. Recently, a lesson on a subway had a great impact on me. I was in the city, and historically, crowds and busy places are very stressful for me, usually leaving me exhausted. I have been working with a practitioner who has been changing my focus and attitude. While riding the train, I saw a mother who looked very tired and a toddler. She had a plastic bag that was from an organization that she was carrying that served the disadvantaged. I could only see the top of the child's head behind a partition. As I was sitting there, many things that I have been hearing here at our classes, during our watches, and testimonies started to pour into my thinking. This helped me see both of them as God sees all of his creation. I poured those blessings on this little child, that God could raise him up to be a force for good and a blessing to his community and to the world. I did not allow myself to entertain thoughts of worry or pity due to city blight, poverty, racial tensions, etc. Doing this, I felt peace and joy, unlike any past trip. As I stood up to leave, the child, who had been very quiet, suddenly looked at me and made such delightful squeals, was full of smiles and lots of happy sounds as if we were old friends, turning his body to follow me and continuing this joyful chatter as I walked around him and exited the train. I was quite awed by this experience and saw God's hand in this. Before, this child could not have seen me, and I did not do anything humanly to get his attention. I was very humbled in learning this deep lesson on right thinking. I also was grateful to, when I got home, that I did not feel tired, but I was rested and calm. I'm very grateful for all that's going on at this church and for Mary Baker Eddy, for Christ Jesus, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you for the excellent readings on the right education. I am very grateful to have been a member of this church for the past several years, where we are getting the right education. The continual immersion in Christian Science that is offered here is the next best thing, I believe, to being in Mrs. Eddy's home. All the classes and interchange and discussion, articles offered in our magazine, Love is the Liberator, the continual support of my practitioner here at Plainfield. I find a gradual, fuller understanding of Christian Science and becoming closer to God as I journey forward more with all that is offered here. I'm very grateful to God for finding my way here, to Jesus, the master teacher, and to Mrs. Eddy and the Plainfield Church.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I'm so grateful for how clearly God has defined the science of Christianity and how that science allows us to gain the ability to live according to the reality of His creation. I see that this perfectly defined reality is why my past ways of living were so difficult and ended up coming to such a dark place. God wasn't punishing me. It was my own ignorance of the laws of the universe that repeatedly came back to bite me. I'm so thankful for this, because through finding out so many wrong ways to think and act, I was finally brought low and my thought made receptive to all this church offers. Now, Week after week, as I go through the lessons and take part in the discussions, I steadily gain new understanding. As this happens, it is clear why certain situations from my past went so horribly. Because of these teachings, I can also work to ensure that those old issues never come up again, as it wasn't chance or bad luck that made them occur. I just didn't have the science to live by. What a wonderful blessing it is to be a member of this church, and to be learning all that Christian Science offers. Every bit works to open the way a little more. I'm also grateful for practitioner support that helps me to truly see how science is lived in our daily lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth from Georgia, go ahead.
On the forum last week, there was an excerpt from an article on how much power the scientific statement of being has when it's applied to a problem. And the excerpt, part of it reads, Mildred LeBlond wrote, "When Mrs. Eddy announced that all is infinite mind and its infinite manifestation, she did something for the human race it cannot ever escape, and which will do more to lift the human race out of fears and limitations than any statement ever made by anyone." One of Mrs. LeBlond's readers confirmed this, exclaiming, "Yes, it was this very statement that was used by the practitioner who healed my mother of blindness, my father on his deathbed, and my little brother of double hernia. I was 7 years old, but I can still hear my parents repeating this statement with the conviction that it would heal them." A number of years ago, I was at work when I came down with symptoms of an aggressive cold. I was able to get somewhere quiet during my break, and I worked with the scientific statement of being, and in its entirety, this is the scientific statement of being. There is no life, truth, intelligence, nor substance in matter. All is infinite mind and its infinite manifestation, for God is all in all. Spirit is immortal truth. Matter is mortal error. Spirit is the real and eternal. Matter is the unreal and temporal. Spirit is God, and man is his image and likeness. Therefore, man is not material. He is spiritual. And at the time, I remember taking each sentence and not just repeating it, but enforcing it vehemently, because I knew it was a law. I think I was at this about 20 minutes, and then I had to go back to work, which I did. I forgot about the problem. About an hour later, I just realized that all symptoms of the cold had just completely vanished. I'm grateful for this reminder that was posted on the forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Oh, good evening. Thank you for those powerful readings. And thank you to everyone who made this service possible tonight. I would like to offer my gratitude to my practitioner, who is patient, loving, and powerful in her understanding of God as taught by Christ Jesus and Mary Baker Eddy. It is because of her prayerful support that I am dropping a lot of my old do-goody behavior. Just the other day, I was able to speak a truth that I had been avoiding for weeks. In the morning, I had been praying with the first commandment, flood tides of gratitude, radiating the Christ, and other things I am learning here at Plainfield. When I spoke about the situation that needed to be addressed, the person I was talking to got up and left quietly. At first, my old way of thinking made me uncomfortable and guilty, but I prayed for God to show me the way, and I soon felt peace. A little later, I wrote a loving communication, and she responded in kind. I have since been in her company and we were happy together. How wonderful to live in God's love, guidance, and protection. Thank you, Plainfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary.
I want to thank God tonight for the healing power that is always present at this church and in its services. And thank the members of this church, both here and out there, for their prayers. They are a power for healing. I remember a while ago, I woke one morning with a severe sore throat. I really couldn't speak, it was so bad. And there was something in that week's lesson that was very useful for me in this regard. And it was a statement from Science and Health, where Mrs. Eddy writes, "Discords have no support from nature or divine law." And that was very helpful to me at the time, because I thought, well, this soreness has no support from nature or from divine law. And since it has no support, I don't have to accept it. The only things I have to accept are those things that have the support of God. And they are all good. Well, I began to feel better, and I held that thought during the day. And that evening I attended a service in this church. And when I walked in, I could feel the love of God surrounding me. And I was able to participate in that service. And by the end of the service, the soreness was entirely healed and did not come back. I'm so grateful for Christian Science, for what Mary Baker Eddy has given us, that always heals when properly applied. And I'm so grateful for all that I'm learning in this church, and so grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Carol.
In a class this past weekend, there was a discussion about complaining, and it reminded me of a woman I used to sit next to, and she would come back from lunch every single day, and she had something to complain about. Something had gone wrong on her drive going home, and it was pretty awful. So I finally had taken enough, and I said to her, "Doesn't anything good ever happen to you?" And she looked shocked. I guess no one had ever pointed anything like that out to her. And she did get better after that. She would come back with something positive occasionally, and it was very good. It was much better. And I've recently heard that her life is turning around. And she'd had rather an unhappy life, but things are turning around for her. And I'm sure it's having a positive attitude with God. Negativity just pulls people down. It pulls everyone around you down, and it just makes a big deal out of an error, which isn't true to begin with. And so with her now thinking more positively, and the door is open now that good can come into her. I am so grateful for Christian Science, and so grateful for all that we're learning here and how to use science and to benefit not only ourselves, but to benefit everyone. I'm very grateful, and grateful for practitioner help. Thank you.
Thank you. Day from Georgia. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for tonight's readings on the right education. Growing up, I remember finding the most interest in my school courses that were more challenging, the ones which required more deep thought, and those which allowed me to put what I was learning into practice. The readings tonight made me think of how grateful I am for learning in Christian Science through the practical teachings in this church. All that I'm learning here about God and man, created in His image, is challenging me to think on a more spiritual level in order to practice what I'm learning daily. I'm grateful for this new approach to life, for all that I'm gaining from it, and for all that it's allowing me to share with others. Thank you so much for tonight's readings again, for all the testimonies so far, and for the music. I'm very grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Lil.
I am so grateful for proof of God's direction and care in every situation. A couple of days ago, my landline phone went dead. No dial tone. I called Verizon from my cell phone and was told my wait time would be about 40 minutes. It felt right, however, to hold on and wait. Not even 10 minutes later, a service rep came on the line. Thank God I had my cell phone so we could stay in touch the whole time. After a short while, he reset my phone, called it, it rang, and it was working perfectly. I checked my TV and my computer as I have triple play, and everything was okay. The short wait time for the service rep, I know, was God in control. This was such a blessing, and I can't be grateful enough for all of God's love. And thank you for those wonderful readings.
Thank you. Sharon.
I want to express gratitude for a healing my mother had. A couple weeks ago, she was rushed to a hospital. And when I arrived, they said she was very sick and the picture did not look good. I immediately knew that was a lie, that she was a perfect child of God. But I also knew I needed help, and I called a practitioner who expressed so much love and wrapped her in love and said, you know, God was guiding, governing, and protecting. And a short time later, the whole picture reversed. My mother complained because she was hungry, and everyone was shocked. Within 5 days, she was released from the hospital. This was a miracle. I am so grateful for what I'm learning in this church and for practitioner help that's always available in every situation. God is a good God, and we can count on Him all the time. I'm thankful for the readings and to be a member of this wonderful church. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Bruce. I also would like to say thanks for those wonderful readings that were given tonight. And there was one passage that reminded me of an experience I had a few years ago. It's where Jesus, in speaking to others, referred to what the prophets had said. They shall all be taught of God. And that's kind of like puts the error in its place that would think that somebody is feeling superior and they got to make sure that they inform everybody else. Whereas Jesus, in reference to the prophets, clearly stated, can you please turn to God, each and every one of us, and that would be so much better. Anyway, the experience that I had was there was this one guy that I was working with, and he had this habit of always wanting to impress others about what he knew, but he would always start out by trying to find some fault in somebody else, and that would give him the opportunity to say whatever he wanted to say. Well, he did this one more time, and I said, you're always finding fault with other people. If you want to find some fault, why don't you look within your own thinking instead of trying to impose this on somebody else? And besides that, have you ever heard of the golden rule? Would you like somebody else to do this to you that you're doing to them? And he kind of like looked at me stunned. And but he stopped doing it, which was good. And everybody else appreciated what I had said. So one simple truth like that was told can do a lot of good. I'm grateful for learning here in this church about Christian Science. And again, for those wonderful readings. Craig.
Those were wonderful readings, and it is so refreshing to find out about how God is going to teach you. It takes the stress out of it. When in coming here, so much was offered in learning about God and great possibilities that it presents to the world. It's tremendous. And I remember I just had to calm myself and take it a step at a time because I was just so happy. I'm still very happy, but I do just take it a step at a time. Our teacher at the time had read a poem which pretty much sums up, I guess, my attitude and where I am now. It's called Neophyte by Max Dunaway. It's on the website. It's just as if he, as a practitioner, saw so many wonderful experiences that he put them down into poems. And it's comforting to feel that other people have had experienced the same sort of situations that I have had and more, and have it has blessed them and worked out well. It goes, when first the dawn burst on his sight, he felt his being filled with light. He looked at all before him spread, and vowed that he would raise the dead. Rent gates of hell from off their bars, and laugh and fling them at the stars. The years passed by, no dead were raised, no mighty wonders man praised rewarded him. Hell's gates remained unshaken by hopes once entertained. The light still shone, but with less fire than flamed his ardent first desire. His thought turned to little deeds, the common tasks of meeting needs. He lifted up a fallen child and wiped her tears until she smiled. He helped the tired and burdened crone, someone he had never known. He sat beside a dying friend and gave him courage till the end. Then sought to soothe the aching heart of her who felt grief's sting and smart, to say a word, put forth a hand, or just be still and understand. And years of living to be kind brought greater love and peace of mind. He learned to serve within his place, growing in gentleness and grace. And being forgotten, the gates of hell in their own weakness toppled and fell. I just felt that God has been educating us and me. Just let him lead, let him direct, and let the good happen, the good be done at his rate and in his way. And it's been a joy and not stressful. Thank God for this church.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the beautiful readings tonight. I'd like to give gratitude tonight for one of Mrs. Eddy's instructions found on page 234 of Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures. It says that you must control evil thoughts in the first instance, or they will control you in the second. Over the years, I've been so grateful for what is taught in this church and emphasized often, to discipline our thinking. Because without that discipline, really one cannot be calm enough, maintain the poise necessary enough to respond rightly when error comes up. With this state of thought, can I calm my senses, those false senses, and hear God and not go under because a claim is frightening? I have been so grateful for this because when I learned that even when I feel pain, I can remain calm and know that this is not a part of me. And this very initial action or reaction is very important. Before, I would react with fear, very alarmed, and then I have confused thought, and I cannot hear the truth that God is imparting to me. This action of calmness also has proved to me that it means that I am gaining more faith in God. I trust Him more. I know that His power and presence is with me no matter what. And it has helped me to be able to react or act correctly when even the claim has been discordant behavior, or any discordant situation. And I have found also that it's a consistent right thinking that develops that calm thought. I am so grateful for this because without science and what it teaches about shutting out the wrong thoughts and so on, I know there's no way I could have even begin to gain any of such poise and calmness and serenity, as Mrs. Eddy very calmly and kindly instructs us to develop. I am so grateful that this teaching is helping me to be able to help myself and to help others. So grateful to God for Christian Science, to Christ Jesus for proving it, to Mrs. Eddy for proving it and also explaining it for us to use. I am so grateful to be here for all the testimonies that have been given so far, and the music, the hymns. So grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mary.
From our church website bulletin board, the first from someone new in Florida. For the past several weeks, I've been listening to the wonderful testimonies from Plainfield. The sharing is so pure and heartfelt that I found myself moved to grateful tears. I realize a healing is happening on a deep level that I wasn't even aware of, as I hear your members so humbly and freely expressing what I am learning or needing to remember. And this week, the testimony I plan to revisit about creation, so I could write it down, the quote that was referenced from Science and Health, popped up on my phone the next day. What a surprise, and a wonderful demonstration on how Divine Mind knows all. I think she was referring to our daily calendar that some people get on their phones. I am new here, having found your website after my eye surgery. It was your audio of Science and Health on YouTube that kept me sustained while I was growing through a false claim regarding my temporary loss of sight. Little did I know then, this would lead me to your wonderful webpage. Thank you all for giving so freely your time, energy, and for your joyful devotion to Mrs. Eddy and her amazing teachings. And then Virginia, thank you so much for Saturday's Bible study, June 17th, and Sunday's Roundtable, June 18th. I am in awe of the history, lessons, and truths that were shared. Also shared was an experience that one of the members, Linda, had on a subway ride, and she blessed a little child, saw him correctly as God's child, open to all the good that God is and has for each one. It is quite remarkable and moving, something I would encourage everyone to listen to and benefit from. This is an example of the correct thinking done in the watches in this church. It truly benefits man. Thank you, Linda. And then Pennsylvania. Thank you, dear Plainfield Church, for our magazine, Love is the Liberator. I often turn to a copy before doing a watch. I have been praying with Gilbert Carpenter Jr.'s poem that reads in part, quote, I see myself as God's own child, as perfect in his sight. I see my brother man as well, a perfect child of light, end quote. It is a beautiful poem, and I am happy that it has been printed in the Liberator. And then again, Pennsylvania. I was very moved by the song sung by Bruce, John, and Faith last Sunday, titled Low Winds of God. It is so beautiful with such a powerful message. that I hope it will stay on our website forever. And then this, an email from someone new in Massachusetts. I'm really enjoying the Love is the Liberator May issue that was recommended. It is so inspiring. I have also been listening to your roundtables, testimonies, and your readings of the early workers on YouTube. It is wonderful what your church offers. I am so grateful to be able to listen. I started listening to the live broadcast this Sunday morning and wanted to stay home from church today and listen to your roundtable and service instead. Thank you so very much. I'm very grateful too tonight for those readings. It was read from Unity of Good by Mrs. Eddy, that whatever cometh not from the eternal Spirit has its origin in the physical senses and material brains called human intellect and willpower, alias intelligent matter. Now, Christian Science is a very radical religion, but it speaks fairly about all things, and this is certainly true about the human mind, which is what was just described in this statement from Unity of Good. In the Bible, it says that the carnal mind is at enmity against God. It has no part in God. I remember the practitioner in this church, Mrs. Evans, the one who led us through the law case, she said when she took class instruction, of course many years ago, there was only one statement of truth that she learned from class instruction that her teacher gave her. And that statement was, intellectuality is the bane of Christian Science. So, as was read tonight, intellectuality is a belief that your intelligence comes from this wad of matter in your head called a brain. And if it's well developed, it almost gets worshipped. Higher education and everyone being so proud of their degrees, and yet it is nothing of God. It tells you nothing of God, and it is in enmity with God. Now, in science, we learn that we have the mind of Christ, that God is our mind. We declare for that every day. And in doing that, we know all things. We have the ability to heal and to bless others, as we've heard tonight. And we have all that we need in life by knowing God is our mind and not some human piece of matter. This is very radical, but it's true, and everyone can practice it and prove it for themselves. It's a great sense of freedom and liberation, because along with this worshiping this human mind also comes problems with the human mind, and I don't have to go into them. We all know what those problems are. But with the divine mind, well, it's perfection. It cannot help but be perfection. So I'm so very, very grateful for Mrs. Eddy for what she has taught us about what our mind is. And it is the mind of Christ, and we declare for it every day, and it's a great blessing. I am so grateful to be here tonight to hear all the wonderful readings, testimonies, beautiful music, that beautiful poem that Craig read too. That is so touching. So grateful for being here with you all tonight.